Like, yo, what is he doing? Unbelievable,
Welcome
man.
to Carvana. Carvana is the only place
Like,
where you
what
can
in
buy
the
a car
world?
from click to delivery.
There we go.
Take 3.
Take 3, like for real. Alright, hold on. My fault, I pressed the wrong button, man. Yo, my fault, I pressed the wrong button. That's my fault. My bad. But listen, here we go. I'm much more adjusted and acclimated to how the thing works now. We're good. Just had to get that, I guess, that first 2-3 times under my belt so I can rock. Can y'all hear me good? I wish I could see the people coming in. Let's see what's going on. Alright, cool. Yeah, so where were we? What's going on, Pernice? So, like I said, we covered the first 4 weeks. We're talking about African origins of humanity. We're talking about African spirituality. We're talking about African politics. And we're the first to originate all these different ideas and all these different concepts. Spirituality, politics, the first culture, the first civilization. All these things we were first, and very important to understand that. That's the foundation we lead with. We were the first to do these things. We were the first to establish all of these things for not just that area, not just the African area, but also we're talking about Europe, we're talking about Asia, we're talking about Australia, and we're talking about the Americas. And everything that we're talking about is proven and backed up by science, by DNA evidence, by anthropologists, by archaeologists, all these different things. Again, in the last video, we just got through talking about the African origin of humanity, first human beings, modern man, Homo sapiens sapien. Homo sapiens sapien. Oldest, 200,000 years old, black people in Omo, Ethiopia. You can Google that right now. Look up paleoanthropologist Richard Leakey and what he found, and you will find it right there. First people on the planet, black people. So like Desmond and Elvin were talking about, what does that mean for the Christian story? Well, the first thing it's going to mean is when you imagine Adam and Eve on the planet, what are they going to look like? Right here. That's what they're going to look like. Based on DNA evidence and anthropology and archaeology, talking about the bones that they found. Rebecca Kahn is the geneticist. You can look her up. She was a geneticist at the University of California in Berkeley. Her and her DNA squad did a whole research. This is back in 1987. The work was posted in 1988 when they completed it, and they studied all the DNA evidence. Every single modern human being, every single one, Homo sapiens sapien, the last 200,000 years when it started, every single human being travels back to one specific group in East Central Africa. And they call her the African Eve. That's what they call that group. So we trace all the way back to Africa. Facts. So whatever creation story you want to get into, creation starts with black people. Period, point blank. However y'all want to divide that up, let them divide that up. And then also we said first people who navigated into the area of Palestine, right there, that area of Palestine, today's Israel, first people to navigate that particular part, to inhabit that particular region, the Natufians. The Natufians, that was about 10,000 years ago. Excuse me, they're the first ones. Before that, the first people in Asia, the oldest bones ever found, 95,000 years old, black people. Black bones. Oh, not black bones, but bones of black people. Oldest bones ever found in Europe, and you can Google all of this. Oldest bones ever found in Europe, the Grimaldi, those are African people, black people. So when you start thinking about today's European, the first Europeans were melanated. First Europeans, melanated. First Asians, melanated. First people in that area we now call the Middle East, black people. Even when you trace back we talk about all this in the class. Even when you trace back the roots of their language, like Arabic, for example. Arabic traces all the way back to Ethiopia. Arabic is an African language. If you look up the Afro-Asiatic languages, Arabic will come underneath that. Not just Arabic, Hebrew, Amharic, and I call out those specific languages because those two languages are the original languages of the Bible. When you start thinking of the Bible in Western culture, you automatically think white people. But the whole history is a, well, you know what? I won't even get into it right now. This is the first video or second video. I won't even get too crunk with that information right now. But just understand, Hebrew and Aramaic, the original languages of the Bible, are African languages. Just know that much right there, and we'll leave it at that. Also Phoenician, and all of this was proven, here's the proof, at the 1974 Cairo Symposium by Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop and Dr. Theophile Obenga. Those are the two doctors, two African doctors, African scholars, who went to the 1974 Cairo Symposium, and they couldn't handle those two brothers, as they gave all the scientific evidence. To this day, the evidence they presented then can't be refuted. So, big ups to those two particular scholars. Yeah, man, I'm hyped, Terica. We're hyped. I'm ready. See, the first two videos I was a little shaky. You see what I'm saying? I wasn't really ready. Now I'm good. We're on it. So what else? We talk about we establish the origins of humanity being African with evidence proven. That's important. Once we do that, that changes the landscape relative to creation stories and the appearance of people, the appearance of man. That changed the scape. Now we also go into this. We also start talking about what were those original people doing. It was so long ago, and what Western culture says is that they were like Neanderthal-like, intellectually slow. Those were the first human beings, but that's not true. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say this might be controversial, but there's actually no scientific evidence that's accepted that connects Neanderthals with any modern human being. No acceptable scientific evidence. So that whole imagery of the Neanderthal man back in the day and them being the beginnings of humanity, that's not true. The beginning of humanity was black people. I'm not sure why they don't want to claim that, but the science is already there. But anyway, what were those people doing back then? Well, at the same time we start talking about those first people, we find out that 90,000 years ago there's evidence of the first culture. The first culture of the planet was the Katanga culture. That's found in lower central Africa, near the Congo, is where you found the Katanga culture. This is 90,000 years ago. What you'll also find is the first evidence of calculation. First evidence of calculation by those people, by African people. There was a bone called the Lobombo bone. The Lobombo bone, they used that bone, they had markings on the bone. And what I'll do on my page a little later on, I'll try to put a picture of the Lobombo bone. They were able to measure the phases of the moon using that. And by measuring the phases of the moon and calculating that, that's how you had your first evidence of time management. So time management first comes into the picture with African people using the Lobombo bone. This is 37,000 years ago. They also would track the woman's menstrual cycle off of this bone. Then they came up with a second bone called the Ishango bone. The Ishango bone not only would measure the menstrual cycle and the phases of the moon, they also, based on how the markings were on the bone, they had prime numbers. They had the concept of base 60 and base 10. Base 60 is how we get into 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute. And this is 25,000 years ago that they have this Ishango bone found in the Congo, and Dr. Charles Finch and some other mathematicians broke it down on how they used this bone. Like I said, they came out with base 60 and also base 10. Base 10 is your foundation for the decimal system. And I know I'm kind of hyped right now, my fault. I'm a little hyped, ain't I, Renee? Yeah, I'm hyped. Because now I'm in a rhythm. You see what I'm saying? I'm in a rhythm now, but if I'm going too fast, my fault. Just tell me to slow down. You can make a comment, because I'm hyped right now, man. Listen, I get hyped for this stuff. But anyway, so, I'm talking about those two bones. Because we're painting the picture of what they were doing. What were they doing? Were they in fact like the Neanderthal with low intelligence, walking around hunting and gathering? That's not true. They had fishing expeditions. They also had mining operations and engineering going on in South Africa. All right, this is 43,000 years ago. So even the first peoples, which were black people, they weren't Neanderthal-like, they were sophisticated, right? Engineering, mining, fishing expeditions. They found 300,000 artifacts in those mines. They had time calculation, math calculation. They're doing all those things, man. Right? Word. So these are the things that they had back then. Now we fast forward some more. In that Nile Valley region, which is where the first civilization will be established. In that Nile region, Nile Valley, you go up from Lake Victoria. It's called something different back then, but today it's called Lake Victoria. Flows up into the area called Nubia. We've all heard of Nubia. And Nubia is going to mean land of gold. Land of gold. So when people call you Nubian, they're calling you gold. That speaks to value. We'll come back to that, but that's a big statement right there. So the people of that area organized themselves into the first kingdom of the world. First kingdom ever established, 5900 BC, and I'll put it on here. I'll put Tarseti on here. Roughly about 5900 BC is when the first kingdom was established. And this would be Tarseti, these would be Nubians, and they called their place Tarseti. Tarseti means land of the bow. Land of the bow. They called it land of the bow because they had skills when it comes to archery. And we talk about it in class. We talk about how it's been reported in historical documents that the Nubians could hit you with their bow and arrow 300 to 400 yards away, actually 300 to 500 yards away. That's 3 to 5 football fields, and they can catch you right in the eye. That's how accurate the Nubians were when it comes to using that bow and arrow. So it was serious back then. So if you were to come to me, talk about, yo, Maarifa, I want to go ahead and battle against the people of Tarseti, you're going on your own. I don't want those problems. All right, those people are serious. So anyway, that's the first country. Now, how do we prove that? Music in the background. You want me to turn the music down? My fault. Is the music too loud? My bad. Because listen, the Western society will play tricks on you, so I gotta have these little underneath beats playing. But anyway, y'all let me know if the music's too loud. Let's see your comment, Byron. Oh, it's good? Okay. So now, I'm giving you those facts about Tarseti. How do we even know Tarseti? Like, where's the proof, right? Bruce Williams, in about 1978, he finds 33 tombs in the city of Coastal. Coastal's in today's Egypt, right? Now, in today's Egypt, you find these tombs. Inside the tombs, there's thousands of artifacts in those tombs. When they studied the artifacts, they discover that there was a kingdom before Kemet, or ancient Egypt, called Tarseti, which we just talked about. When they studied those artifacts, they discover not only was it the first kingdom and the first people to organize themselves into a state, they're the first one to develop a writing language, a writing system, arts, scholarship, sciences, what was the other one? A spiritual system, laws, government, order. The first people to even organize themselves into that, what we call high civilization, are the people of Tarseti, based on the proof of those artifacts found in those tombs. If all of that can make sense to you. So that's how we know. Bruce Williams is the one in 1978 who discovered those items in those tombs. Then come to find out, as we were getting closer and closer to understanding that the people of Tarseti populated the area of Egypt, which would make the early Egyptians, or the people of Kemet, black people. Once they started to prove that, all of a sudden, in Egypt, they made this man-made dam. This is I can't remember what year it was, 1980s or something like that. Man-made dam, which put water, millions of gallons of water in this man-made dam that they made, which covers the area they were researching. So to this day, there's no way we can continue to do the research to find out what's going on, because it's covered by a dam and all that water. So they stopped that progression because Bruce Williams and his team was on the way to further proving that the ancient Egyptians, or the people of Kemet, were in fact black people. Because we know in today's society, when you see ancient Egyptians depicted, they aren't black. They're usually white, or they're today's Middle Eastern, Arabic type of look. And that's not true. And of course, we're not going to say that without providing you with proof that, in fact, the ancient people of Kemet, or the ancient Egyptians, were in fact black people. And this is what we talked about yesterday in Kemet Part 1. We were talking about establishing the fact that the people of Kemet were black. And if y'all don't mind, I'll give you the areas that we covered that prove that they were black. Right before I do that, let me give you the book you can resource. I'll give you 2 books that you can read up on, research, use them for resources. 2 books by Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. First one, African Origins of Civilization. African Origins of Civilization. The second one is Civilization or Barbarism. Civilization of Barbarism. You read those books, he breaks it down eloquently, on point. First thing we talked about was number one, Kemet, and I'll even put it in the comment section. Kemet means land of the blacks. That's number one. And I'll put it right here in the comment section. Boom. That's number one. Kemet means land of the blacks. So why would they name themselves, you know? And they even call themselves, let's see if I can spell it right, even call themselves Kameo. And Kameo is describing their skin tone, which was black. Kameo means black. So this is what they called themselves. They also called the land Tamari. Right? That's according to Dr. Ben. So right off the bat, what they called themselves, they were black. And again, this is a recap of what we talked about yesterday as far as establishing Kemet, the population of Kemet as black people. That's number one. Number two, in the Edfu Temple, there's a place called in today's Egypt called the Edfu Temple. I put that on the blank too, in the comment section. Edfu Temple is where they have the story of Horus and some other people from Tasseti coming up to establish themselves in ancient Kemet. And we know the Nubians, everyone knows the Nubians were black. That's easy. So the Nubians came and populated today's Egypt or Kemet. And I'm going to stop saying Egypt because the correct name is Kemet. So from now on, we're going to go with Kemet. So y'all know what I mean. When I say Kemet, we're talking about Egypt. So Kemet was populated by the Nubians. That's on their record in the Edfu Temple. And I put the Edfu Temple in the comment section. If you want to take a look where that is, you can look that up. So that's evidence number two. So the land was called Land of the Blacks. They called themselves black. And the Edfu Temple, their texts are talking about how the Nubians populated ancient Kemet. The other area we can go into is the rock paintings. There are rock paintings. The earliest depiction of human activity in that area are rock paintings, and they're paintings of black people. So there's rock paintings. When you look at the paintings, I'll try to put a picture up on this particular comment section when I finish this video. But there are rock paintings that depict the people, the first inhabitants of this area as black people. All right. Then we got more evidence. Now we have, and I wish I had the paper with me. They studied they studied over 1,000 skulls. Studied 1,000 skulls. They studied at least 50 mummies, and they concluded. Oh, matter of fact, I went ahead of myself. But they concluded that when they studied the skulls and the mummies based on DNA and studying the bones, that they were black people. And then in the comments, they're saying they're verifying Herodotus' claim. Herodotus was a Greek historian. Him and Diodorus were saying that the earlier people of Kemet were black with woolly hair. So once he said that, that's when those archaeologists and anthropologists did the study on the skulls and the mummies, and it verified the Greek historians' claim that they were black with woolly hair. Then they actually studied more of the skulls, more of the DNA, and the blood groups. They studied those too. They found out those people were black people. So all the evidence lines up to the ancient Egyptians, people of Kemet being black. And then to top it all off, like we talked about in the video before, to top it all off, when at the 1974 Cairo Symposium, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop and Dr. Theophile Obenga proved that Coptic Egyptian, Hebrew, Arabic, Amharic, and all other languages are in fact African languages. Even the Egyptian language they used was in fact an African language. So your language proves they were black. Origins were in Africa, black people. When you study the skulls and the DNA and the mummies, those are black people. They're saying the people of Kemet are black people. When you look at the Greek historians who traveled to Egypt, or Kemet, wrote everything down, they're saying they were black people. When you look at the rock paintings in that area, they were black people. When you look at, every angle you look at, you see what I'm saying? Their own records are talking about they were black people. So, and I didn't mean to ramble on like that, but, that's what it was. So that's one of the main things we talked about right there. Y'all want me to keep going? Or I should just chill right there? Because it's already been 20 minutes. And I've been rambling non-stop the whole time. Getting hyped for about 20 minutes now. So if you want me to keep going, I'll keep going. But I feel like we've covered a lot just in that 20 minutes. How y'all feel? Let me type it. Since y'all can't see. Since that delay is there. Keep going. I can keep going. All right, true. I'll give you a little bit more, and then we'll stop. Let me see. So another thing we talked about was the development of the people. We're talking about, since we all know Kemet is the greatest empire of all time, probably people consider it the greatest nation of all time. I mean, you can spend years studying Kemet. I mean, we have something called Egyptologists, where they just spent their whole life studying Kemet and all the different philosophies that were developed and everything. So, you can spend a whole lifetime. So there's not enough time to cover everything, of course. But we studied the development of the people. How did the people get to where they achieved so much? People like Imhotep, and I'll write his name down, Imhotep. Imhotep is considered to be the world's first genius. I don't agree, because I know his father was on point. His father, Kenifer was on point. Yeah, I'm sweating, right? Yeah, man. I'm hyped. But yeah, Imhotep's considered the world's first genius. I just say he was one of many geniuses in ancient Kemet, and I'll put his name right there. But how did they get to that point? Like, what caused them to be and to operate the way they did and to achieve all the things they achieved? What was their development like? And then, not only finding out what the development was, can we model that and have the kind of success they had? And I think that's important, to have our own blueprint, our own, instead of looking to other races and other cultures for a blueprint for success, a blueprint for wealth and prosperity, a blueprint for what to teach our people. We can look at our own people who achieve success, and not only just achieve success, but we're talking about many nations have patterned themselves after us, and we're just not aware of it. So history provides that blueprint. So that's what we want to do, is study their development. What did they do to be on point? Now, I'm going to tell you, there are two things that they did that made them on point. Number one was their intellectual studies. They started, Terrence said, speak on Mansa Musa. That's way down the line. I can't get that. That's way down the line. But one thing they did, they studied something called the liberal arts. And in today's society, liberal arts, you think in English and all that stuff. But it wasn't taught like that in Kemet. Oh no, you good, Platt? You good? All good, man. No problem. We're freestyling right now. It's all good. We freestyle. So, but they study the 7 liberal arts, and the 7 liberal arts. If on the top of my head, I'm gonna try to name them. Let me see. It's grammar, it's arithmetic, it's rhetoric, and rhetoric's talking about persuasive speech. The art of public speaking is rhetoric. That's one of the 7. Another one is dialectic. Dialectic is when you take two opposing positions and then you combine the two and come up with truth. Or you hear both of them out. You analyze both of them and you come up with truth. That's dialectic. Now those 4 within the 7 are called the quadrivium. The quadrivium. That's 4 of the 7 liberal arts. The other 3 are astronomy, geometry, and music. Astronomy, geometry, music, and those are your 7 liberal arts. You had to master those 7 liberal arts if you wanted to move on when you joined the temple to get the knowledge that Kemet was teaching. If you want to advance, you gotta master those 7. And when I say master, I'm not talking about in a sense of control. I'm talking about you have to harmonize and understand those subjects before you can move on. And then on top of understanding those subjects, you also had to master the 10 virtues. So there were 10 virtues. The reason why you have to have the virtue, because they had something called fetters, and I'll even write that down, fetters. And fetters were like chains. Fetters were like chains, like mental chains, mental things that were holding you back, right? Yeah, Randall Little, good point. They had to be in school for 40 years. I'm gonna come back to that. So fetters were like chains, and when I say chains, we're talking about stuff like fear. We're talking about ill will towards humanity. we're talking about attachment, ignorance. All these things are called fetters, and there are about 10 of them. Now, there's no record to where we identify exactly which fetters they were talking about. But Buddhism and some other disciplines have taken on this idea of fetters or chains of the flesh that you have to get rid of. How do you get rid of them? You have to operate in what they call virtue. So the first time we see virtue in history is talking about ancient Kemet, black people. What are the 10 virtues? You have to have 10 virtues to master so you can get rid of those chains and advance. So you have the 7 liberal arts, and then you have to master the 10 virtues. These are the 10 virtues. Number 1 was control your thoughts. You had to control your thoughts. Number two, you have to control your emotions. Control thought, control your emotions. Then you get to number 3, you have that devotion of purpose. Devotion of purpose. Number 4, you have to have faith and confidence in your teacher to teach you the truth. So confidence or faith in your teacher to tell you the truth, or to teach you the truth. Then you have to have the confidence or faith for you to assimilate to that truth. That was also a virtue. Remember, virtues are what eliminate the chains. Then I think we're on number 6. You have to have confidence and faith to utilize that truth that you've been taught. Confidence in utilizing that truth that you've been taught. I'm not sure what number we're on, but the next one would be you had to eliminate resentment from persecution. So any type of resentment that you got from persecution, you had to eliminate that. You also had to be free from resentment relative to someone doing you wrong. So those things had to be taken care of. Then the last 2, we're talking about virtues, to get rid of those chains of the flesh. The last 2 that you had to do, you had to, what were they? Cultivate the ability to tell right from wrong. Cultivate the ability to tell right from wrong. And then the last one was cultivate the ability to tell real from unreal. What's real versus what's fake. And that's very important. One thing we talk about in the class too, you say you're all messed up? No, you're good. One thing we talked about in the class is something called Farouk. And that's an Arabic word. Remember, Arabic is an African language. That's an Arabic word, and it means discerner of truth and falsehood. So one thing we talk about is to become Farouk. You want to become a person who's able to tell what's true versus what's a lie. Basically. Did I spell that right? Discerner. If I spelled discerner wrong, y'all just rock with me. I put it on there. I might have spelled it wrong. Spelled wrong, but you good. You said working on your emotions, so you good. You good. So, water? No, I'm good. So, you have those 7 liberal arts, and then you have those 10 virtues that you had to master. 7 liberal arts, 10 virtues you had to master. You do that, you move to the next level in the temple. And with that right there, as you master different things, the sciences, chemistry, physics, as they add more and more subjects to what you have, you start to advance, of course, mentally. And that's what caused them. That's one of the things that caused them to achieve all the things that they achieved. And like I said, there's so much to Kemet, it's not even funny. And we can go on like this for days, really, but I just want to give you that little bit that we talked about. Those are the main 2 things we talked about, was the peopling of Kemet, establishing the proof that the people of Kemet were black, and number 2, the development of the people. And we had more of those subjects that they studied. We just gave you the 7 liberal arts to start with, but there was a lot more than that that they had in Kemet. Those are the 7, and those are the 10 virtues that you had to master in order to move on to the next level. So that's just a little bit. We're at the 29-minute mark. It's 9:10. What y'all want me to do? Like, any questions about what we talked about so far? And like Randall Little said, the school, you were in temple for 40 years. 40 years you were in temple. Some of the Greek philosophers even came to Kemet to study. People like Pythagoras, Plato, spent some time. Pythagoras, I think, was there for like 20 years. Plato was there for about 20 years. Democritus came through. Not Aristotle. Aristotle comes later, after the Persian invasion. So he wasn't there while the actual Kemetic priests were teaching people. And also understand this is funny. The Kemetic priests would call those Greeks who came to learn in the temple, they would call them children. because the Greek so-called philosophers couldn't understand the Kemetic teaching in its fullness. They couldn't get it. So the Kemetic priests and the scribes would call them children. So just know that. But anyway, y'all want me to keep going? You want me to chill? Are we good? It's been 30 minutes. I'm not sure how y'all feel about it. No one's commenting right now. Let me ask. Any suggestions on good online sources to read? I don't know about good online sources, but of course you can get physical books. And Anthony Browder has a good one, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Anthony Browder. That's a good start for anybody who wants to know more about Kemet. Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. Another one is Black Man of the Nile and His Family by Yosef Ben Yakinen. That's Dr. Ben. That's another good book you can get. And there's a lot. You can get Meta Nature by Ra'un Amen. You can get, he has like 7 volumes of that. That kind of goes into the more of the African cosmology aspect of it. So there's some books you can get. Online is kind of shaky, but physical books are good. Physical books are good. Any other questions? Y'all got any more questions or whatnot? We can kind of do this. Like I said, we'll do this every Tuesday. And we'll just kind of recap what we discussed, what we talked about in class. The class is in Hidden Valley. This is week 4. You really want to listen. You really want to come through when we do African spirituality. We've actually already done it at Hidden Valley, but you really want to come through for that, because that really exposes a lot and has us on point. So, any other questions? Let me type that. People have any questions? I'm not sure how long the delay is on the video. So y'all good? I think I'm good, because I don't see any more questions popping out. So we'll stop right there. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Like I said, we'll try to do this every single Tuesday, and we'll recap what's going on relative to the African history class in Hidden Valley, and we'll discuss it. Any questions y'all have, we can rock. And yo, shout out to you, Blunt. What's going on, man? The mogul's in the house. Yeah, man. Was there any specific rulers from Nubia we should know about? Definitely some rulers from Nubia. And you know what? When you start talking about Nubia, specifically Kush, I would start with the Kendaki queens. That's who I would start with right off the bat, since that's like the most formidable series of queens that the world's ever seen, the Kendaki queens. And I would start with those. And there's a good book, a good book you can get that covers specifically Black women in antiquity, which that's actually the name of the book, Black Women in Antiquity by Ivan Van Sertima. That's an outstanding book. So me personally, when I start with leadership and important figures in Nubia, I would start with the ladies, because the ladies are on point. And for Timmy, you're asking me to spell the queens. That's deep, because their spelling is off the chain. I'll give you one. There you go. Hold on. I'll give you the name of the book. Black Women in Antiquity. There we go. By Ivan Van Sertima. You get that book and you're on point. And listen. Black Women in Antiquity by Ivan Van Sertima. That's a hard book to get. Hard book to get. If you're not going through his website. So look up his website and you can order it there. If you don't get it from his website, it's going to be hard to find. It took me like 8 months to get the book, because I didn't know where to find it on his website, and they were selling it for $1,000. So $1,000 is what they were selling it for. So I eventually found it for 75 cents. You can do the math on that. So that was big time. So if you really want that book, go to his website and you'll be able to get that. All right, are we good? Yo, so every Tuesday, man, we'll do it. Every Tuesday we'll do it. We'll recap. We'll do a little something and bring questions and all that. Listen, I can talk about this 3-4 hours straight. So, you know, I get hype on this stuff. So, So I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be easy.